Hey guys, it's Marco again. Today we'll talk about the most interesting topic, which spec is going to be the go-to for the next raid's progression. First, I will comment the base damage of the specs, and then we'll go over every boss and I will try to predict which spec is the best for each boss. So without further ado, let's get started. The only change which happened in this patch is the Fire Mage nerf, which is a several percent nerf for the spec on solo target fights. And now they will have awkward timing of combustion. And I hope that this isn't an awkward timing for you to press that like button, that will help me a lot. And looking at Castle Latria Fire Mage logs, they were just a bit better than other mage specs, due to the nature of the fights in Castle Latria, which extremely suited Fire Mages, fights like Sludge Fist, Sardonatrius, Sun King and Lady Nerva. I believe that their solo target damage shouldn't be touched, since it's only decent and we can see that on Shriekwing and Hungering Destroyer. Even on current patch we can see that Frost Mages without Power Infusion are winning against Power Infused Fire Mages on Hungering, and even some Arcane Mages will pull off bigger damage if they get good RNG. So the only reason why Fire was this powerful was the raid setup and Mythic Plus power. They will remove the same raid setup, which is already a nerf, not including a damage nerf. But Fire will remain a super good class for Mythic Plus, even after the nerf. But the players won't really want to go Fire, since that means you have to all in Night Fae. So I think that Fire Mages will be a rarer sight than today. So with that said, you kinda realize that I think that Fire won't be the go-to spec for the raid in the most cases. And that's even showed in DPS simulations. As you all know, Frost Mages and Arcane Mages are both simming more than Fire on patch for solo target fights, even now. And in the next patch they will sim much more, about 10% more for the solo targets. While Frost and Arcane Mages are having simulations at a similar damage. But simulations don't tell the whole story, since burst damage is usually more valuable than constant damage. Fire has the best burst in my opinion, with Arcane being a close second, while Frost has no burst. Just because of that, I will value Arcane damage a bit higher than Frost damage. But also, we have to go over every boss and comment them a bit to get the full picture. I'll already say that I will probably mispronounce some of these names, so no hate, I'm just a hillbilly. And also before we start, I need to note that all the bosses don't have the same value of importance. No one cares so much about the first ones or first several bosses. The last ones are usually hectic and will require a lot of vibes and proper team composition. The Taragru is the first boss of the instance and it's a pure solo target fight with a bit of movement in intermission. Overall, it's an easy fight which doesn't require burst, and I believe that both Arcane and Frost will excel here. Second boss is Eye of the Jailer. It's a solo target boss with a bit of add cleave and light movement. In the intermission phases we're swapping to relatively big 2 adds which are standing way too far away for us to cleave it. So it's mainly a solo target fight with an add here and there. Also, it's important to kill the 2 adds at the same time, and that's why I think that consistent Frost damage is more reliable. So I would bet my money on Frost for being more useful here, also considering that we have a cleave moment. The 9. It's a 2 target cleave fight in the first phase, while they sometimes summon the 3rd add. It has a decent amount of movement, and the last part of the fight is a solo target phase, with the same add coming sometimes for the cleave. This boss fight is a no-brainer as soon as you hear cleave. Frost Mages are ready to pounce. Remnant of Ner'zhul. Our good old friend is a solo target fight with a lot of movement and orb duty, which will probably fall down to shamans in wolf form. Also, there are knockbacks which are super annoying for casters. Boss sometimes spawns orb adds, some can be cleavable, depending where they spawn, and you need to kill the orbs so they become movable. So it's a priority damage, and it's always appreciated if you can easily swap to a new target. Again, there is no need for the burst here, and I would put my money on Frost again, since they can cast more instant spells and not worry about the knockback as much as Arcane does. but Arcane and Fire should also be fine here. Soul Render Dormazine. This is another throwback boss featuring Garrosh. It has a safety dance mechanic, which translates into a lot of movement. It's a mainly solo target fight with some adds incoming. The adds are spread away, but they can be pulled, so good burst AoE is wanted as well. For this fight, I can't put my money on anything. I believe all the specs can do well. It's a solo target fight with movement. The amount of movement will surely hurt Arcane and Frost a bit less. But Arcane can catch up with a decent AoE burst, while Frost is a bit lacking there. While good old Fire Mages can still blast those adds and move while DPSing. So this boss fight is anyone's guess. Paintsmith Raznal. This is a very fun fight with a hectic movement. It's mainly solo target DPS with big AoE in intermission phases, which also features hectic movement, and during the first phase you will need to have a good priority DPS for swapping to a rolling ball to escape the Wall of Death mechanic. Arcane will definitely suffer the most from the movement, but they can have an easy intermission with Arcane Explosion spam. Frost Mages will also suffer from the movement, and they will have a hard time casting Blizzard in the intermission phase. So I would actually say that Fire might be the best for this fight's progression, with easy movement and good burst AoE. Guardian of the First Ones. This is a pure solo target fight with a small amount of movement. Basically, this is our patchwork style of a fight, and our best simming specs, Arcane and Frost Mage, will surely be the best here. Fatescriber Rokkala. Another mainly solo target fight. He spawns an ad which follows the tank, so we will be unable to cleave it, but we have to swap to it right away. Intermission phase has small adds AoE, and you have to dodge small balls which are floating through the air. This seems like a pretty much easy fight, but it has one really interesting mechanic, but it doesn't affect our DPS. And for this fight, Frost wins on priority DPS or ad swapping, while Arcane will be better than Frost in the intermission phase. Fire is also good in the intermission phase, but they lack a bit of solo target damage. So Arcane or Frost are going to be the best. Now, I'm not sure if the intermission phase DPS is going to be more important than ad swapping, but I believe that Arcane Mage will be on top of the DPS meter, mage-wise, due to the pad. Now for the last two fights, which are usually most important, Kel'Thuzad. This fight has a decent amount of movement. There will be a quite big amount of ad swapping, but it's just priority DPS without cleaving and without AoE in the first phase. In the intermission phase, you either are going into Phylactery and killing a solo target within it. In the Phylactery there is a lot of dodging, while outside you will be having an ad cleave with 2 or 3 targets. After you kill the Kel'Thuzad's Phylactery, that's after 3 intermissions, you're fighting him together with the intermission adds, so it's going to be kind of a 3 target cleave for a bit. Personally, I don't think that Arcane is going to be good on this fight, due to movement and cleave. Frost is definitely going to be ideal, but some groups might want a Fire Mage depending on how much damage do you need in the Phylactery. Sylvanas is a mostly solo target boss fight in the first phase with a lot of movement, and sometimes you will have to kill the arrows which chain the players. The DPS on them is going to be weird, since boss is usually unmovable, so it will differ from a pull to pull. There might be some cleave, and there might be some AoE, or it's just going to be a pure solo target fight, depending on how the arrows spawn. In the intermission phase, everyone gets an arrow, so it's big AoE time. Now for the second and third phase, we didn't see a lot of it on PTR. Second phase is a huge movement phase with a bunch of adds for a big AoE cleave. Third phase is a hectic movement, mostly solo target phase, but this part is kinda dark, since we almost didn't see a single pull in there. Honestly, this fight is a big open book in my eyes, since we don't have a lot of information about it. I honestly believe that in the first phase, Frost and Arcane Mages are going to be the best, while in second phase, Frost Mage is gonna suffer a bit, depending on which legendary they're using, and Arcane is just gonna do fine. While I think that Fire is gonna excel at second phase. And it seems that the last phase won't really suit either Arcane Mages or Frost Mages, since there's going to be a ton of movement and there will be some downtime, so Frost Mages probably won't be able to keep 100% uptime on their Icy Veins. Maybe, just maybe, we might see some Fire Mages on this fight just because of the last phase. And those are all the encounters explained in the most simple manner. Majority of the fights are following the same trend of solo target DPS with the adds during intermissions. And I really think that we will see a huge variety of Mage Specs going into this raid. And I think that this is going to be the most balanced Mage patch in the whole World of Warcraft history. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing different builds. But I think that for top guilds progression, they will only take one mage, and it's going to be a Fire Mage, maybe even a Frost Mage. Fire offers cheat death and always reliable moving DPS, while Frost offers additional immunity, which are both extremely useful tools for progression, while Arcane can only offer one immunity. But for more casual guilds, so rank 100 plus or even 50 plus, I think that Frost will be a go-to Mage spec due to bigger DPS than Fire Mage. And I believe that Arcane will have the similar DPS as Frost Mage. I somewhat hope that Arcane Mages won't be the most popular spec because of the Arcane Dream, which is going around, and the Dream will be over if it becomes the mainstream DPS class. This doesn't mean that Arcane is going to do low DPS in the raid, it might actually be the best Mage DPS. But DPS isn't everything. And trust me, as a player who played a lot of Arcane and even did the starting progress in this expansion as Arcane, I wouldn't recommend playing it at start. I don't doubt its DPS, but it's hard to execute the spec and you really need to pay attention to it, which might result in failing tactics, and you also shouldn't get tilted by the bad crit RNG, which is a big thing for me. That in combination with new bosses and new mechanics really makes it difficult. That's why you usually see Arcane Mages catch up with the rest of the Mage squad the longer the raid tier exists, since fights are going to be min-maxed a lot faster and you will have the lowest amount of movement needed. That's why I would say that Frost is the better choice. It's an easier spec which always performs, and to top it they have 2 ice blocks. I'm focusing a lot on this part just because there's a somewhat of a general consensus on Mage Discord server that Arcane is going to be the best. All I want is that people think what's best for them and that they form their own decision based on gathered information. First weeks of the patch are going to be the real evidence, and this now is all just a prediction. And with that said, I will thank you for your time. Have a nice day, and please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Visit me on my Patreon page and my Twitch as well. And as always, until next time, take care.